everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care podcast and video. I'm Dwayne. I'm a certified RV inspector, and today we're going to be talking about my best tips for full-time RV stationary living. Yes, RV living can be done in lots of various ways, and you don't always have to be traveling to enjoy the RV life. There's lots of RVers that actually spend quite a bit of time in their RV in just one spot. And there's various reasons for that. It could be that they want to save money and therefore staying in one spot for a while can help them save the costs of traveling around. It could be also that full-timers want to stay in one spot for a while for various reasons. They may really enjoy the climate there, like us snowbirds. Or it could be that they just like the area itself and want to explore it. Or they could have family nearby that they want to spend a while with. If they're like us, full-timers may also really want to have a permanent home base, a stationary place where if unexpected things come up out on the road, they can always come back there. So clearly, there's a lot of reasons why you may want to be stationary in your RV for a while. So here are my best tips for successful stationary living. And let's start with number one. And that is that if you're going to be permanently living for a while in an RV, then a towable RV is probably your best bet for that over, say, a motorhome. And that's pretty easy to understand because the motorhome has an engine and a drivetrain that's just sitting there doing nothing for prolonged periods of time, and you still need to maintain it. So a towable lends itself to stationary living better. And if we're talking about comparing travel trailers or fifth wheels, well, probably if you can make it a fifth wheel, that's a little better because usually it's a little better quality and very often larger as well. And that leads us into our second point. And that is that larger RVs lend themselves better to long-term stationary living. Why? Well, because RVs are not very big for living space to begin with. You're probably looking at between 200 and a little over 300 square feet in most cases. So the more living space you can get, the better. Sometimes those walls can kind of close in on you. So having more living space is a good thing. Now, number 3 on our list is while you are stationary, don't forget to keep up the maintenance on your RV. I see this as a problem all the time. People get stationary and they forget about a lot of the maintenance, especially on the outside, the exterior of the RV. But remember, you still need to be checking joints and seals all over the RV to prevent water intrusion. You really need to be washing and waxing that RV on a regular basis to prevent fading. And if you have a generator, well, then you need to run it on a regular basis, and that keeps it in good working shape. That leads us along to another point that's important. Number 4 is if you have a motorhome that you're staying in for a prolonged period of time, don't forget to exercise that engine and drivetrain. I know you're not using it, so it can be out of sight, out of mind, but it needs to be used regularly. What I recommend is at least on a monthly basis, start that engine up and run it for a while. Make sure it's being lubricated well. But honestly, you need to run the motorhome. Actually break down the site, take it out on the road, especially on the highway, and run it for a while. Get everything working. It will keep things in good working shape if you'll do that. Moving on to number 5 on our list is if you're going to be staying in an RV park for a while, well, choose it carefully, especially for security. Now, a lot of folks don't think about that. Many folks think about just looking for price alone when they're going to choose an RV park or campground to stay in. But then they move into the park and find out, well, there's issues in that park, and now they're kind of committed. So before you do that, read the reviews online for that park or campground very carefully. Very often in the reviews, if you start to hear about security issues, maybe it's better to choose someplace else. Also, ask around. Get some suggestions from people that are local, and often that gives you a lot of good information to make before you choose your park or campground. Moving on to number 6 on the list is, if you're going to be in a park, well, get the lowest rates possible that you can. You don't want to be paying daily rates there or even weekly rates. Look for annual rates or semi-annual rates or quarterly rates, and that way you can get as low as possible. Now, the longer term that you go out for rates, well, then you may find that they don't include the electric costs in that. So find out what those are on an average before you commit. And that way you can budget the cost of the campsite for the stationary time that you're going to be there. All right, moving along again, number 7 on the list is, it's good to have an outdoors area for extra living space and comfort. Now, that's true because, again, getting back to that living space issue, in an RV, it can get very tight. So it's nice to have a little outdoor area where you can go out and enjoy the outside and do so in comfort. Now, if you're going to be in the area for a while or in that spot for a while, you might choose setting up a pergola or a gazebo. Those are great for having a really nice, enjoyable area to be in and have shade at the same time. But if you're not going to be there for a permanent stay, then maybe a pop-up canopy would be good. We've done that. They generally don't weigh an awful lot or take up a lot of space, and you can use them for as you go from place to place as well. So just consider the idea of setting up a nice little area outside your RV while you're stationary. All right, that brings us to number 8 on the list, and that has to do with your tires. If you're sitting in one spot, it's so easy for tires to just get pounded by the ultraviolet rays of the sun. And they're going to dry out and crack very quickly and easily if you do that. So if you're sitting stationary, have the tires covered, and it will give them a lot of really good protection to make them last longer. Moving on to number 9. And that is, if you're going to be in an area where extreme weather could happen before you leave, then get prepared for that. For instance, if you're going to be in a more northern spot where colder weather is going to come in before you leave, well, get ready for it. You may want to skirt the bottom of your RV. You probably want to increase the insulation by maybe covering windows with an insulated material and stuffing something up into the vents in the roof to provide insulation as well. Now, if you're staying in the south, and this is probably what most people do, they often are going to be in areas like maybe Texas or Arizona, where you could be facing over 100 degrees for a prolonged period of time. So again, insulate as much as you can, and your air conditioning units may not keep up in that kind of an environment. So you actually might want to think about putting in a mini split if you're going to be staying in that one spot for a prolonged period, especially permanently. Mini split air conditioners seem to be catching on pretty well, and a lot of people are using them in extreme hot temperatures. All right, let's move along to number 10 on the list, and that is your internet needs while you are stationary in one spot. When you're traveling around, you probably have mobile internet solutions to stay up with your internet needs. But when you're in one spot, you may find that it's actually cheaper and faster to connect up to what's local, maybe a cable company. So give that some thought as well. I know we have done that, and we've always enjoyed that. Well, those are my tips for stationary RV living. Clearly, it can have its challenges, but it can also have its rewards too if you think ahead and prepare well. Hopefully, the tips I've shared with you today will help make your RV stays in one place more enjoyable and more successful. And that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.